Sarah stood frozen in the hospital corridor, holding her 6-year-old son tightly against her chest as security escorted her out. The loudspeaker overhead called for code blue in room 412, but Sarah couldn't answer it. Not today. Her nursing badge hung limply from her scrubs like a cruel reminder of everything she had worked for and just lost. Patients watched, nurses whispered, doctors pretended not to see, and her son, Liam, clung tighter, asking in a trembling voice, "Mommy, why are we leaving?" She didn't have the words, but what Sarah didn't know that day was that the very person who would change her life forever had just walked into the hospital for the first time, someone who would be standing beside her when everything turned around. The backstory: a single mom's fight for Sarah. Nursing wasn't just a job, it was survival. After her husband passed away in a car accident 2 years earlier, Sarah had become both mother and father to Liam. Her shifts at St. Mary's General were brutal. 12 hours on her feet, often skipping meals, staying late when the ER flooded with trauma cases. There were days she left the hospital long after the sun had set, only to come home and help Liam with math homework or rock him to sleep after nightmares. Child care, forget it. Sarah's pay barely covered rent and groceries. The local daycare was full, and the babysitter she could sometimes afford had suddenly moved out of state. For weeks she scrambled, tasking neighbors, distant cousins, even other nurses on different shifts. But that Thursday morning, with no one else to call, she made a choice. She brought Liam to work. She gave him her tablet with headphones and sat him in the break room with coloring books. Every 15 minutes on her rounds, she'd peek in. When she had a lunch break, which was rare, she'd sit with him and share her sandwich. She told him to be quiet, to stay put, and that it was just for today. But life had other plans. The breaking point, the day everything collapsed around 2 p.m. While Sarah was helping an elderly patient in the ICU, one of the senior administrators, Ms. Parker, caught sight of Liam wandering the hallway looking for his mom. "Whose child is this?" Parker's voice rang out like a siren. By 3 p.m., Sarah was in HR. By 3:30, she was terminated for violating hospital safety protocols. No hearing, no second chance, no understanding. Just a cold, signed letter and 2 security guards waiting to escort her out. Her coworkers, some cried quietly, others looked away. No one stood up for her, except Liam. Liam wrapped his arms around her legs and said to Parker with all the courage a 6-year-old could muster, "Don't yell at my mommy. She's the nicest nurse here. Enter the new CEO." And a different kind of leadership. What no one knew that day was that upstairs, sitting in a temporary office reviewing stacks of employee files, was the hospital's brand new CEO, Daniel Whitmore. Daniel wasn't your typical executive. Years ago, he'd grown up with a single mom who worked double shifts as a CNA. He'd spent countless evenings in empty hospital cafeterias, coloring and waiting for her to get off work. He knew this story too well. As fate would have it, Daniel's assistant had overheard the commotion in HR and mentioned it to him that same afternoon. Some nurse got fired for bringing her kid in today. Whole floors upset about it. Daniel paused mid-email. "What's her name?" By 5 p.m., Sarah's employee file sat on Daniel's desk. By 6 p.m., Daniel was in his car, driving to the small, rundown apartment complex listed on her emergency contact sheet. A knock at the door. Second chances when Sarah heard the knock that evening. She opened the door cautiously. She hadn't expected visitors. Her eyes were still swollen from crying. There stood Daniel, holding a brown paper bag from the local diner and 2 large cups of hot cocoa. "Hi, I'm Daniel Whitmore. I run St. Mary's now," he said gently, "and I think we need to talk." Sarah's heart dropped. She expected more bad news, maybe a restraining order, a final insult. Instead, Daniel sat with her at the small kitchen table while Liam colored in the corner. They talked for almost 2 hours. He asked about her late husband, about how long she'd been a nurse, about her favorite part of the job, about Liam's favorite superhero, and then he said words she never thought she'd hear. "I'm sorry on behalf of this hospital. We failed you today." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm reinstating your position," he continued, "full pay for the days you've missed, and Starting Monday, we're opening an on-site daycare for staff with kids. Sarah stared at him, barely breathing. We should have had it years ago, Daniel said, shaking his head. I know what it's like to grow up in hospital hallways. The comeback, from rock bottom to inspiration Monday morning, Sarah walked back through the front doors of St. Mary's. Her colleagues clapped, some hugged her, even MS Parker, red, faced with embarrassment, offered a stiff apology. And when Sarah passed the new daycare room by the front lobby, walls freshly painted with colorful murals, shelves stocked with toys and books, she broke down crying all over again. Liam had a place, finally. But it didn't end there. A few weeks later, Daniel called her into his office with another surprise. I'm starting a hospital family support committee. He said, I want you on it. Sarah blinked. Me. You understand what it's like. You've lived it. I need someone like you making sure this never happens to another nurse again. Full circle, who joins her at the end. A year later, the hospital hosted a recognition ceremony for employees who made a difference in workplace culture. Sarah was the first one called on stage. As she stood at the podium, with hundreds of coworkers applauding, she started to cry. But the real moment came when Daniel walked up beside her, hand on her shoulder, and then motioned toward the side of the stage. Out ran Liam, wearing his own little nurse's badge, smiling from ear to ear. The entire room stood for a standing ovation. The final message, for anyone watching: this story isn't just about a job. It's about dignity, it's about second chances, it's about leaders who choose compassion over policy, and for every single parent watching this right now, for every nurse, teacher, or essential worker who's felt alone in their struggle. Remember this sometimes: the person who will change your life forever is already walking toward you. You just haven't met them yet. Stay strong and never, ever give up. End.